My name is Barbara. I am CEO and founder of indaHash. I have been into influencer marketing space for 8 years. Before that, I was working in the PR industry, and a friend of mine started a YouTube channel. And thanks to that, I got more and more into this space. First, after quitting PR industry, I established with one YouTuber a multi-channel network called LiveTube, which was doing talent management, and we've been working mostly with top-tier influencers. And I started seeing the impact that influencers were doing on the followers, and I saw that the relationship between influencer and the fans is something I've never seen before. I was a spokesperson on one of the biggest festivals for celebrities, but it was completely different. The relationship between influencer and the audience was so close that I started seeing how big is the potential of influencer marketing and how much brands can benefit out of it. But at the same time, working only with top tier influencers, I saw that they started doing more and more campaigns, and some of them started losing their credibility. And I started thinking how I can change that. And then the idea of indaHash came. So the idea of doing influencer marketing more at scale, engaging not only top tier, but also micro and mid tier influencers. Right now, we work in a way that we created technology to automate the process to the possible extent, because it is not possible to automate it 100%, because at the end of the day, you're working with people. And we are working in a way that we have a dashboard, we have an app, we have an integrated solution for top brands. And the average size of influencer who participates in our campaigns, from what we checked, is 60,000 followers. And of course, sometimes we work with influencers who have 5 million followers, and sometimes we work with those who have 5,000. But actually, all of them are good. It just depends on your needs and your strategy, whom you should target, and how to select the best influencers. Because right now, almost everyone is an influencer, and it's the combination of art and science to find really good ambassadors. Maybe also very briefly why I personally believe in the power of influencer marketing. Many people used to perceive influencers as people who are, let's say, lazy, don't have too much to say, why should I use them? And many people say, oh yeah, it's just a trend. But if we look at the numbers, and if we look at how our media are looking right now, we have more and more media workers, and media are really losing their credibility. We spend more and more time in social media, especially during COVID. Our time in social media is growing significantly. And I believe personally in the power of relations, and I believe that social media kind of democratize those relations. So people whom we are not able to meet in person, we can follow in internet, and they become as close as some of our friends to us. And even no matter what we think about, if we like the trend or not, this is a huge trend that I believe only will become bigger and bigger, and there is lots of data to prove that. Here is, for example, the Instagram influencer advertising spend that grows every year and is supposed to grow even more rapidly because of COVID that accelerated this growth. And also top tier brands are already using influencer marketing. I think we've been working almost with all Fortune 500 brands in all the markets we operate, because right now we operate on over 100 markets, and we are having 7 offices globally. And there are no big brands that haven't worked with influencers. They just have different strategies. Sometimes they do it in-house. They don't need companies like ours. But it becomes more and more important part of the communications, and more brands decide to do it in-house. So I also want to give stage to Ashwin, who will tell a little bit more about our experience with dating, our as the company. My experience with dating, online dating, is doesn't exist because I met my husband when um, online dating was not that common. So it's also very interesting space for me to learn more, and I believe it's very closely related space to what we are doing, because it's kind of digitalizing some part of the relations that used to exist only offline. Ash, floor is
Perfect.
yours.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. My name is Ashwin Singh. I'm the Vice President for indaHash for Asia Pacific and China. I'm currently based in Singapore. And in the coming 10 minutes, I would love to share some best practices about influencer marketing with you, so you will be able to run the best influencer marketing campaign possible. Now, my experience has been derived over the last 2 decades when I was working as a marketeer for some of the Fortune 500 companies like Shell and WPP, but predominantly within my time with it indaHash. At indaHash, we have run over 10,000 campaigns globally with a lot of Fortune 500 brands, which you can see on the right as well. And we work a lot with agencies. And just to share a little bit of information on how influencer marketing actually fits with dating. And this is a nice segue to the presentation that we had earlier, because if we gotta look at the dating landscape in 21, we see that this has changed a lot in the last 40 or 50 years. You can see in 1940, 80% of the couples actually met through family or friends. And this was something that John mentioned as well. This is for the longest time the way of meeting your potential partner, through people that you know. And the beauty of this was that the vetting process already took place. You met someone at a house party, you met someone at a birthday party, even when this was a blind date, you already know that the vetting was done by the host, was done by the family, was done by friends. Now, if we skip forward all the way to 21, we see that the majority of people actually meets their significant other on an online platform, right? You can see this in the screenshot as well. And this was done by Stanford. This was a study conducted in 2019, which shows those numbers. And you can see Derek Thompson. He is a journalist for The Atlantic. You rightfully say we used to rely on intimates to screen our future partners. Today, that's work we do ourselves. And this actually brings us back to two important factors that are also very much of a nature for influencer marketing. And it all boils down to credibility and authenticity. When we're talking about marketing in general, credibility is very important, and so is authenticity. And when we look at media consumption, we see that people are consuming different kind of medias. But we also know from our research and from research in the industry that millennials and Gen Z, they trust the traditional media less and less. The reason why? They don't think they're credible. They don't think they are authentic. Now, when we then skip to the next slide, what I would like to do in the coming 6-7 minutes is showcase the 4 reasons why most influencer marketing campaigns fail. But I'm not only going to give you the problem, I'm going to give you the solution as well. And one of the things that we see a lot in our industry is, are clients using the right influencers? And most of the people, when they think about influencer marketing, they think about the big names. They think about the celebrities. They think about The Rock or Selena Gomez. And quite often, when we ask our clients, who do you think would be a good influencer to represent your brand? We quite often get a big name, right? It's very vanity driven. It's very ego driven. If you then tie this back to credibility and authenticity, We don't think this is the right way to go. At indaHash, we always advise our clients to use a data-driven approach. In the end, you're not interested in the influencer that much. The influencer is just a content producer. The influencer is just a vessel. You are interested in the audience. You want to know what is the audience interest? Where are they coming from? What are their hobbies? And this is very interesting when you look at the current approach. When it comes to influencer marketing, it should not only be influencer focused, but the strategy should be audience focused. And what you see over here, this is just on the website that I got from Mark. We see so many different dating apps. We have the Lux Clubs. It's an app for picky Jews. We have an Irish speed dating app. Actually, 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago, I heard for the first time in my life about Gutsy, a dating app for people who have digestive problems, right? With so many different target audiences, how do you make sure that you are picking the right influencer? Our recommendation is not only to look at influencers, but look at your target audience. Reverse the game. First, look at your target audience. What is the ethnicity that you want to capture? What is the age group that you want to reach? We can even look at hashtags and keywords and interest. When we have this in place, then we can look which are the influencers which actually capture this particular data. So this is how you come to the right influencer. Not only focus on the influencer, but focus on your audience. Now, the second big question, when you find your influencer, are you working with real influencers? And for a lot of people, this might not come as a surprise, but there is a lot of fraud happening in influencer marketing, as you can see over here. More than 270 million Instagram accounts are fake and 30% are inactive. You want to make sure that your hard-earned dollar is spent in the rightful way. So always make sure that you check your influencers, you check their followers. At indaHash, we do this through multiple stages. Number one, we look at influencers' profiles. If we see that they had 5,000 followers yesterday and they got 500,000 followers today, there's probably something fishy going on. If we notice that most of the accounts are actually private accounts, we know that that is probably a red flag. Now, there's only so much that computers and machine learning can do. So actually, every particular profile is checked by a real human moderator as well. And you can remember what I mentioned before as well. It's very important that you get great insights on the audience. So for this, we use a wide variety of data providers who can help us to provide the so-called audience score. We not only do this pre-campaign, we do this mid-campaign and post-campaign as well. And this leads to something that we call a credibility score, which you can see on the screen right now. This highlights how credible a particular influencer is. So the big takeaway for tip number 2, always make sure you do your influencer vetting and you do your audience vetting as well. Number 3, is your campaign engaging enough? And working in this particular era, in dating, in relations, it can be so engaging, it can be so entertaining. But here we have an insight of a campaign which was not done by us, or which was done by someone in our space for Bumble. And when you look at the campaign brief, it's kind of vanilla, right? Submit post including the Bumble logo. There is no storyline, there is no narrative. It's not very engaging. You just see people wearing a cap with the Bumble logo. When it comes to influencer marketing campaigns, try to bring creativity into play. Try to work on the right strategy. We actually developed a concept for a dating app in China, which we call one-sentence horror story. I'm sure that we all have, or we all remember one date which went awfully bad. And we actually invite not only influencers, but their audience to summarize that in one sentence, hence the one-sentence horror story. After this has been done, the influencer will then showcase the app which they are using, which will mitigate those horror stories, which we all know from the dating community, right? So make sure that you use creativity in your influencer marketing campaign. Now, the fourth part, and this is something that Mark tipped on as well. Are you tracking the right KPIs? When we ask our clients, and what we see in our industry is, what we see in our industry is quite a lot, people are focused on KPIs like engagements, likes, which can be very good KPIs, but we always reverse it and we ask our clients, what does success mean to you, right? And for a lot of clients, especially startups, it's about brand awareness, but it's also about name recognition. So what we have developed in conjunction with Nielsen are brand lift studies, where we can measure to which extent is your brand top of mind? To which extent does your brand gain favorability? And is it recommended by other people as well? So this is something that we did, for instance, for one of our clients, Starbucks, where we actually saw that the impact of influencer marketing campaign conducted by us was such as that the purchase intent was increased by 133%. And favorability, for instance, was increased by 80% as well. So the big takeaway for this tip number 4 is make sure you use the right KPIs and track them as well. Barbara, I'm going to give the floor back to you.
I think it's super important to analyze the audience and use different tools to do that, to see the credibility rate, to see the audience data, because so that the profile looks the influencer profile looks interesting doesn't really mean that your audience would be a right one. And there are, especially with English speaking countries, it's very, very tricky. Let's say for the UK market, if you have 60% of audience coming from the UK, it's really brilliant. If you have more homogeneous country like, let's say, Japan or Poland, then you can even expect 80%. But there are certain benchmarks, and it also happens sometimes that you have UK-based influencer, but the audience comes from, let's say, US, and your app might not work there, or your product service might not be available there. So it really makes sense to analyze this data. If you don't use any specific tool, you can just ask influencers with whom you want to work to send you the insights from their profile. And also, if they don't want to send it, it's always a kind of question mark. It's also good to analyze real reach, because number of followers is one thing, but real reach, so the certain number that of followers that influencers reaching is really important. Same mistake people do when they are choosing YouTubers. So they look at the number of subscribers, which is semi-important, because the most important thing is the average number of views that the video in a certain format is generating. So there is lots of data that really needs to be analyzed, and also it's good to use some even free tools to check followers' credibility, because still there are some shady practices on markets, and it's good to be sure that you pay for a genuine audience. It's important to have an idea for the campaign. So sometimes people are saying, oh yeah, I tried influencer marketing and it doesn't work for me. Yeah, because if there is no strategy, if there is no idea behind, it might not work. It's not only about the brand awareness, it's also about what you want to say, especially if you engage influencers. If there is no particular idea for influencer marketing activities, it's probably better to spend this budget more on simpler form of advertisement, because probably it would be a better return. And also to set certain KPIs. And I would also suggest, if you don't have too much experience with influencer marketing space yet, to think to do something that then you can check on other markets. So let's say if you do a very, very small budget, 2K, 5K, you might not have a representative result, because what we see is that the more contacts you generate with the content, with the branded content, with your audience, with your target group, the better the results are. And the best combination is to have between 8 to 15 contacts of your potential target group with your message. So probably if you're operating on many markets, it makes sense to focus only on one, to use also this attribution model to see, to do something at slightly bigger scale to see what performance you might have. Also, when you're setting KPIs, I think for all the apps business, I would advise to work on organic content, so working with influencers, but also paid advertisement. So adding boosting, adding tracking, and really analyzing which influencer performed how and which post performed how. So I think it's very, very important before starting those activities to be sure what you want to achieve.